Welcome to The Explainer. We are unpacking an incredibly complex financial journey today that thousands of skilled migrants, corporate executives, and permanent residents face every single year. Relocating from Australia back to India. Managing your accumulated retirement assets across two very different countries is literally one of the trickiest cross-border compliance challenges out there. But don't worry, we're going to break it all down and make it perfectly clear. Okay, let's dive into this. Moving back to India from Australia. Or maybe you've recently made the leap. If so, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to look at the absolutely crucial steps you need to take to protect the wealth you've worked so hard to build. Because here's the thing, don't assume your Australian super works like your EPF. Many returning NRIs think they can access their Australian super as soon as they leave Australia. But Australia's superannuation system has totally different rules from India's Employees Provident Fund, and assuming they work the same way can lead to massive tax headaches and completely locked up funds. Now, what's really interesting here is how fundamentally different these two models actually are. India's EPF is a government-regulated, debt-heavy social security mechanism. It offers early access flexibility, like a full withdrawal after just 2 months of being unemployed. But Australia's superannuation, it's a privately managed, highly flexible, market-linked system. But, and this is a massive but, it is heavily bound by rigid preservation laws. You generally cannot touch that money until you hit a preservation age of 60 and actually retire, or you turn 65. So whether you can access your super really depends on factors such as your visa status, your residency, and whether you've actually met the legal conditions for release. Let's look at Pathway 1, which is for temporary residents. If you were working in Australia on a temporary visa, say a 482 or a 457, your rules are super specific. If you're a temporary resident, you may be eligible for a departing Australia superannuation payment, known as DASP, after meeting the applicable requirements. Namely, your visa has ceased and you have permanently left the country. And this brilliantly illustrates the catch. While DASP allows you to take your money, the Australian government applies incredibly heavy withholding tax rates to effectively claw back the tax concessions you got while you were working. For standard temporary visas, that tax hit is 35% on the taxable component. But what if you were a working holidaymaker or backpacker? No way around it. It's a staggering 65%. Right, let's shift gears to Pathway 2, permanent residents and citizens. If you're an Australian citizen or permanent resident, that DAS pathway we just talked about is strictly off limits. Your super is generally preserved until a condition of release is met. So the crucial takeaway here is that your funds are legally locked in Australia. To get them, you've got to reach your preservation age of 60 and permanently retire. Or if you're between 60 and 65 and still working, you can start what's called a transition to retirement income stream. Otherwise, you just have to wait until you turn 65, and then you can access it regardless of your employment status. The silver lining, though, once you reach age 60, withdrawals from a taxed super fund are completely tax-free under Australian law. I also really want to take a quick second to bust a very dangerous myth. You know, some returning NRIs believe they can simply roll their Australian super balance straight over into their Indian EPF account. Well, scratch that, you absolutely cannot. While the India-Australia Social Security Agreement is fantastic for preventing double Social Security contributions for temporarily seconded workers, it contains literally zero provisions for transferring fund balances between the two countries. Your super has to stay in Australia. So let's see how this builds a massive tax trap when you land back in India. Your tax status in India changes based on your physical presence over time. At first, you're a non-resident, and your Australian income is totally exempt. Then you step into what we like to call the golden planning window, the resident but not ordinarily resident or RNOR status. This usually lasts for about 2 to 3 years, and your foreign income remains exempt. But eventually, you transition to resident and ordinarily resident or ROR status. And suddenly, boom, your global income becomes completely taxable in India. Let's bring this down to earth with a real-world example. Meet Amit. He's a 45-year-old software engineer who relocated from Sydney to Bengaluru. Over 7 years in Australia, he built up a pretty solid super balance of $180,000 Australian. But because Amit holds an Australian PR, he cannot claim a DASP withdrawal. His $180,000 is legally trapped in an Australian fund until he turns 60. All while he's living and working as an ROR taxpayer in Bengaluru. And this brings Amit to a terrifying double taxation trap caused by a massive mismatch in tax timing. See, Australia taxed Amit's super on the way in and will make his withdrawal at age 60 completely tax-free. But India? Under the general rules, once Amit becomes an ROR, India is going to tax the phantom growth, the dividends, interest, and capital gains, inside that locked Australian account every single year. Because the Australian withdrawal later on is tax-free, Amit won't have any foreign tax paid at withdrawal to claim as a foreign tax credit in India. It's an absolute structural nightmare. Thankfully, there is an ultimate solution to this mismatch. Under the new Indian Income Tax Act 2025, there's a lifesaver provision called Section 158. By filing Form 40, eligible taxpayers can actually choose to defer the taxation of their foreign retirement accounts until the actual year of withdrawal. This effectively synchronizes the Indian tax timeline with the Australian tax timeline, giving you massive relief and stopping that annual tax drain on money you literally can't even touch yet. We've covered a lot, but you absolutely have to avoid these common pitfalls. First, assuming your super is immediately available upon relocating. If you're a temporary resident, do not miss that 6-month DASP window, or your funds are swept straight to the Australian Taxation Office. And if you do leave funds in Australia, don't ignore those high default life insurance premiums that might be completely void now that you don't live there. They're just eating away at your balance. But the most devastating mistake: failing to file Schedule FA, or foreign assets, on your Indian tax return once you become an ROR. Forgetting this one simple disclosure triggers an automatic 10 lakh rupee annual penalty under the Black Money Act. Yes, 10 lakh rupees just for forgetting a form. Insane, right? So before moving back to India, review your retirement savings, tax residency, and any India-Australia DTAA considerations. You'll want to switch your super to a low-cost, growth-oriented investment option to really optimize that compounding while you wait to reach preservation age. Cancel those void default insurance policies inside the fund. Calculate exactly how long your RNOR golden window lasts, and please get professional tax advice to evaluate your Form 40 compliance before your ROR status kicks in. This entire system is like a giant puzzle fraught with compliance landmines, but there are also incredible opportunities for tax-efficient planning if you handle it right. So remember, protect your retirement, plan before you relocate. I highly encourage you to consult with a cross-border tax professional to assess your specific exposure. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Take control of your assets, and we'll catch you next time.